Welcome back to the Paperstac podcast. My name's Rick Allen.
TJ Osterman.
We're here at the Paper Trail Conference with the host, the founder.
The host with the most.
Chris Seveney. How you doing, man?
Good. Thanks, Rick. Thanks, TJ.
Yeah, we're here. Good conference. First time out there. It's always scary to run the gauntlet, huh?
Oh, it sucks. Let's just be honest. It's it's a lot of work. So, it's something that, like everything, you anticipate it taking this much effort, but it took about 10x that effort to put it all together.
That seems to be business sometimes. It just runs in there. For those of you who don't know Chris, you've been in the business a long time.
10 years in this business, but real estate for 20, almost 30 years now. So.
And this wasn't the full-time job to start with when you made the transition, right? The notes?
I stumbled upon notes because I was working full-time in real estate, and my wife and I were doing like the whole BRRRR strategy of rehabbing properties in the DC area. Our kids at the time were like 3 and 10, and we'd go to properties on the weekends, and that's where we were spending our weekends. And finally my wife is like, this is way too much. So she's like, find something else to do. And I was like, okay, challenge accepted. And I called myself like the midnight to 2 investor. Everybody goes to bed. I was up at night figuring out, okay, what could I do? Mm-hmm. And at first there was like tax liens, and then that's like watching paint dry after you buy a tax lien. Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. Everyone looks at tax liens, oh, this is gonna be great, I'm gonna make all this money, and it's boring. And then I stumbled upon notes. Mm-hmm. And I've always known about like private lending and seller financing, but then when they said, oh, non-performing loans, I was like, oh, this is interesting. Mm-hmm. Let me dig a little bit more into that. And about 10 years ago, and 750 plus loans later, here I am.
That's crazy. Now you got your own, you got a fund, just getting huge. So I guess I've spent a lot of time talking with you in the past, and it's always, you go to the conferences or you're on the phone with somebody, and it's always like just listening to war stories.
Oh yeah,
is so much fun. And so, and I've learned a lot from some of the war stories we've had.
I think the most.
There's some great stuff there.
Real wolves.
But there was a couple that Brett was telling me about that I was like, I gotta hear these. I gotta hear these stories. Tell me about the resurrection loan. Like, what is the resurrection loan? Brett said he almost peed his pants laughing.
So this was a contract for deed in Indiana.
Okay.
I think it was Gary.
Naturally.
So if you don't familiar with Gary, great place to spend your summer vacation. Disney World or Gary might be the 2 places you consider. But it was recorded, so it wasn't one of those CFDs where it's like, okay, just see you later, walk away.
Yeah.
So it was recorded. The borrower passed away, so you had to go through the full court process with the forfeiture and everything. Okay. And so we started to go through that process, and the attorney, I believe it was an attorney I hadn't used a lot, and I was just like testing different attorneys to see like, okay, which one's better, because you always think grass is green on the other side. Sure. One attorney ticks you off, so I'm going to go to a different one, and usually you end up back where you're the original one. And it was going slow, and just it's like, oh, come on, and stuff. So we finally like get the court date and so forth. For expecting to get motion for summary judgment because guy's dead and so forth. Like, okay, we'll be able to get this property back. And I get the phone call from the attorney, and I'm like, oh, how'd it go? And he's like, oh, we had a continuance because the borrower showed up and wanted more time to pay the loan and so forth. And I'm sitting there like, wait, time out. I'm like, the borrower's dead. And the attorney all of a sudden is like, you hear that pause. And like,
oh yeah,
thinking like, that brief moment of, now what do I say? Because I just realized, oh shit, he's right. So all of a sudden he's like, oh, and I'm like, who was there? And he's like, the person said they were the borrower. And, I we're joking with Brett. I'm like, it's not too often I see a borrower get resurrected to show up. If I'm getting resurrected, I'm not showing up in court. That's what I'm, I can think of other things I'd want to be doing.
Right.
And so the attorney then notifies the court, and the court's basically like, hey, look, we got to wait for the next hearing and so forth, and kind of figure out what was going on. And it was actually the borrower's, one of his sons, who had the same name showed up in court and was pretending to be the borrower.
Oh, man.
So, but we also then found out there was family involved. So then the court is like, okay, because of this, like, then the judge is like, well, we're going to kind of like make you foreclose now, but we need the borrower to file probate, or like the family to file probate. And we're like, here we go. Like, you know, if you could, you know, basically it's like if you just would have said that the guy is deceased, then, you know, we probably would have had this property. So, you know, we're trying to get the borrowers, he wasn't married, it was the mother of his children, to file probate because he didn't have anybody there. She had no idea how to file probate, and unfortunately, you know, in a lot of these areas, you know, the educational system is not the greatest, and so forth. So we were trying to get so we're literally on the call, myself, like trying to help out, do whatever we could do, my attorney, the judge, and this woman, and we're literally trying to help her fill out the paperwork for probate. And, you know, it's like, okay, does he have any children? And she pauses, she says, yes. And, you know, it's like, okay, do you know the children's names? And she pauses and she's like, I think so, but I'm not sure. And then the judge is like, well, you know, are you the mother, like, do you know who the mother of the children is? And she's like, yes, I'm the mother of the children.
Oh my gosh.
And, you know, so, you know, you're sitting, you hear these stories and it's just like, oh my God.
There's no
like,
way.
Yeah, and, you know, so we're trying to figure out, and the judge had asked like, well, how many children do you have? And, you know, she had, I don't know, was it 6 or 7 children and so forth. So like, okay, can you write down the names of all your children? You know, and so forth, and, you know, and do any of them share the last name? And, you know, she struggled to just provide that information. And at this point in time, you know, our attorney and myself are like, kind of like, okay, can we excuse ourselves from this train wreck? Because like, we're not needed, like we can provide the loan information or whatnot, but this is really like, you know, I'll call it above my pay grade. So, you know.
Or below it.
Or below it, yeah. So we, you know, we kind of buzz out of it and so forth. And my attorney was staying in touch with the judge, trying to work the case and so forth, which, you know, finally we got it resolved. They figured out who the next of kin were. We actually end up, though, at the end of the day, foreclosing, because they basically wanted to try and keep the property, said they had all the money. They didn't. And so we literally wasted, 6 to 9 months and lost that much time.
If your attorney would have just said the borrower's deceased, that's not the borrower.
Yeah, and he had the death certificate in his file. Like, he went to court literally, like, with everything, the death certificate, like, all the paperwork, and just completely...
I mean, it just shows being in the note business, like getting...
You never know.
Especially the non-performing side.
Yeah.
Rick and I have been through things that... I tell everybody, like, some things you can't plan for. Like, I mean, everything will kind of come up, and it's like, it's sometimes you think, it's going to be an easy in and out.
How good of a problem solver are you?
Right.
Yeah. And again, CFD in Indiana, 100 of them, you're in and out in 4 months. Like, easy peasy, you know, and so forth. And then in this one, anything but. Yeah.
So tell me about, that's a good one. Tell me about the, you had multiple wives?
I don't have multiple wives.
Okay,
Let's start with that.
You don't have multiple wives.
So,
but you had a deal where there was potentially multiple wives involved?
Yes. And again, great state of Texas. Foreclose, I can go take a nap sometimes and you wake up and foreclosure's already occurred.
That's the beauty of Texas, right?
Well, it is until, again, this one, there wasn't a resurrection. I actually would have wished this borrower would have been resurrected so he could answer the $1 million question. But the $1 million question was, the borrower passed away and was living in a very beautiful home and ran several businesses, which he had a female business partner who claims to have been in a relationship with him. And he also, as part of living in this property, was another woman who he had, I think, 1 or 2 kids with. And he passes away. Actually, it was also in bankruptcy, which just mentioned that, but throws a complete another curveball in it. But in probate, in order to get through that probate process, there needs to be a designated executor, somebody who's going to manage the estate and then give off all the assets. Well, you can imagine that these two individuals, and in Texas, if you basically, raise your hand or play rock, scissors, paper, like you're common law married. You don't have to sign anything. It's more of like, you cool? Yeah. Okay, good. We're married. Yeah, we're good. So,
all right.
So that's kind of how it works, I guess, in Texas, is according to my attorney. And again, it probably is a little bit more complex. But at the end of the day, the probate judge, basically each one filed a motion to be the executor, because of course they probably would have just given the money all to themselves in this situation, couldn't make a decision. He wouldn't make a decision. He wouldn't pick one or the other.
So what happened?
So we couldn't foreclose because we couldn't notify the probate.
So you could, because you had to determine who you're actually.
So is this still going on?
Yeah, you have to serve. You have to serve somebody. So we ended up yes, and it's almost to its completion. So what we ended up having happen. And you want to talk about, just wanting to pull every strand of hair out of your head? Well, sorry. But the probate attorney and the bankruptcy attorney basically got them together to so the bankruptcy attorney is like, because it was I think it was a business or a chapter, I forget, one of the chapters where they can sell the property. Mm-hmm. He's like, I don't want to sell the property. Let's let probate sell the property. Probate's, I'm not going to sell the property, let the bankruptcy sell the property. Mm. So both of them are just passing the buck back and forth. We finally just filed motion for relief and got the probate attorney and the bankruptcy attorney to basically say, good, you handle it, we'll let you as the lender just deal with it. And because it technically isn't in probate, because there's nobody to serve in probate, they use some random call it law or something, basically say, okay, you're clear here, which will allow us to get the motion relief to go foreclose, which we have our foreclosure hearing in a few weeks. And so we had somebody go buy the property, and Larissa was mentioning that we haven't got the pictures yet, but somehow there's a tree up in a car in the property. So we're trying to figure out how.
A car is up in a tree?
Yes. So we're trying to figure out how, the next is, how did the car get up in the tree? So you were able to. So now it's in your hands. You were able to decide who to serve. So you chose one of the. So actually, they basically said you don't have to serve anybody.
Oh, you don't have to serve anyone.
They don't have to serve anyone. Just now we're at the normal Texas foreclosure of just publish it in the newspaper and you're done.
Publish it and you're done.
Yep.
Wow.
But it took a year to figure that out.
It's crazy. I find that if somebody dies, unless it's a HECM loan.
Yep.
It can cause all kind of problems.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I've had borrowers pass away in the past. That Georgia one.
Yeah.
The Dr. Feelgood, because he was a drug dealer. Molly Crue song. That one, that one passed away, and it's like, okay, get that property sold. But others never an issue. But lately, it's just like, oh man,
we bought some property in Alabama. And it was the original owner died and left the property, like the whole big chunk of property we bought. It was from an estate. We got it, but there was a little sliver that lady, whoever had owned it now, quit claimed over to us. But now there was like 4 other heirs so it's just we got to just do quiet title and the whole deal. But it's just a giant pain in the ass.
I was talking to the agent I used on this Las Vegas property, which we'll talk about that one in a minute.
Tell us about the Vegas property. That's a great segue.
Before we do that, I'll just mention this. She was working with a seller that passed away, and same thing, like the heirs, they can't find them, and it's going to HOA sale now. And her boy
in Las Vegas?
Yeah.
That's bad in Las Vegas.
Yeah, so
that's a super lean state.
Yeah, but they're also looking at it from like, hey, look, if her boyfriend's like, wait, if the HOA goes to foreclosure, can I buy it at the foreclosure auction? And I'm like, then you own the house. And they're like, oh, interesting, because I guess it's like a small HOA, and they're hoping like, oh, maybe nobody shows up at auction, but
Yeah.
But so the Vegas property. So this was a non-performing loan we bought, and the borrower.
So just so you guys, there's a theme here. If
Yeah.
you want boring tax lien sales or performing loans,
Yeah.
if you want exciting and
NPL space.
yeah, Jack in the Box kind of, I don't know what's coming out or when,
Yep.
NPLs.
Yes.
Oh.
NPL, Henderson, just outside of Las Vegas, and borrower bought the property, was in the restaurant business, and ran a bunch of like taco shops and everything else when we were doing our due diligence, and also had the property on the market for sale for a period of time as well. And photos didn't look too bad for the property online. Borrower hadn't paid. Borrower his mortgage payment is $1 million loan plus tax, probably like 8 to 10 grand a month, and he was like 2 years behind. So,
Okay. All right.
we're a few hundred grand behind. He asked, hey, if I give you an extra $1,000 a month, will that make things go away? Because he's like, I screwed up. There's like a cell tower on the property that he thought he was going to be getting $10,000 a month from the cell phone company, which the agreement was I think it was a 10-year lease for $10,000 amortized over 120 months. So he was getting like, it was probably less. It was like $150 a month is what he's getting. He thought he was getting like 10 grand a month. So little math error there.
Well, Matt read the paperwork, saw a big number, and said, "Oh, that's a monthly."
Yeah, or something. But
happened there.
so this guy though questioned a lot of his decisions clearly, because they actually had it under agreement and were supposed to close like the day before the foreclosure. And the title company was ignoring us because we didn't even see like the contract or anything. So we're like, do you foreclose? Do you not foreclose? Because if they pay it off, great. So we pushed the foreclosure month. Title company's like, yeah, the borrower went dark, and they were only going to sell the property for 1.3. They owe you 1.45. He didn't have the money. Like, where'd the borrower go? Like, we can't find him. So like, okay. So do a little bit more stalking of our borrowers and stuff, and find out, Google the guy. He was in prison. So
Oh no.
he got arrested because he was running without licenses, the food licenses.
Oh, yeah.
And he'd been caught several times, and finally they're like, okay, enough's enough, so they arrested him. I'm not sure where the mother was and stuff. So we foreclose on the property, and I found our real estate agent, and she's going to go buy the property. And she's like, okay, it's clearly occupied. Like, okay, so get our attorney, just file the eviction notice. Attorney, goes, files eviction, posts it on the door, because I think in Nevada it's pretty quick if there's no like lease or anything. So our attorney gets a phone call from some woman claiming to be a family member. And we're like, okay, whatnot, what's the number? So we have our agent reach out and say, hey, can you coordinate a time? Because the person was asking for like more, I think it was in August, and they asked like, hey, could I have till Labor Day to move out? And because otherwise, literally they would have had about a week. So we were giving them like an extra 3 weeks. So I told the agent, like, hey, meet the person over there, see if they're really moving out, because you'd be surprised how many people really move out when they say they are. And, kind of get like the skinny of what's the condition of the property.
Yeah.
So she shows up, the agent shows up, meeting her at like 2:00 in the afternoon. And, this woman shows up like 15 minutes late, and she's like apologizing to our agent. She's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I was finished up in class and, traffic. And so my agent's like, oh, do you go UNLV or whatnot? She's like, oh no, I'm a junior at XYZ high school. And our agent's like, huh?
What?
So
Wait, she's a junior?
Junior in high school.
She's in high school, and she's the one occupying it?
Yes, and our agent did tell us this, but she's occupying it with her autistic brother, who is also, I believe, underage.
Oh, and dad is in prison?
Yeah, and mom's not around. So
Sounds like a TV show.
So these two individuals were living in a 5,000 square foot home, basically.
How are they paying to keep the lights on?
So she worked as well. So she did work, so they are actually paying utility bills. But she did say, I do have some friends that, that we're getting all an apartment together. We're going to be moving in together after Labor Day. So could you give me till Labor Day? And our agent walks the property, and believe it or not, it was like the house needed work, but it was like well kept.
Yeah.
She did have 2 dogs, but like she kept it clean, kitchen was clean, all of that stuff. So we give her till the end of the month, and then finally she's, moves out and so forth.
She moved out on time?
Yep. She needed like an extra day, but like we're like, yeah, sure, whatever. She ended up taking though like the car lift that was in the garage. That was probably like a $5,000 car lift, or sold it or whatnot. Yeah. But hey, nothing you can do at that point in time.
No.
So our agent goes through this property and is like, she's like, you're not gonna like this. I'm like, what? She's like, you're probably only gonna get like $1 million, $1.1 million for this unless you put some work into it. And I'm like, well, what do you call for work? She's like, I'd redo the bathrooms, the floors, like, so I got some bids, and I put an ad on Indeed for like a construction superintendent manager. And this woman reaches out to me. She's such a hot shit, and is like, hey, look, my husband does all these HUD renovations. She's like, he'll renovate it and I'll manage it. And I'm like, okay, how's that work? And so forth. Like, but believe it or not, she just like, to her husband, like for like getting it done, and like she's just like true third party relationship, even though they're married.
What?
Oh, so
she's like.
So yeah, so we write the scope of work where we had a $150,000 budget. And our agent's like, hey, if you do all this stuff, now I think you'll be able to get like 1.7, 1.8 for this property. And I'm like, that works for me.
Yeah.
So, we go in, we, redo the floors, paint the kitchen cabinets. I mean, this property had like a view of the strip, beautiful view of the strip, and then like the mountains out the windows. I mean, it was gorgeous. Had a pool and everything. Had 2 like, what do they call them? Au pair suites, and they call them something else. And Nevada, in-law suites or whatever, casitas or whatever they're called. Yeah. So we go through, we get it all renovated, and time to sell it. And our agent, so we list it. I think we listed for like 1,995, and we get like coming soon. So we get this guy that flies into town, and is like, I want to buy this home. So she goes and shows it to him, writes up an offer of like 1.7, and we're like, it's not even on the market yet. We're like, no, we're good. So then he like comes back and like wants to do all these inspections and everything, and it's got like this carport that was like a big 2nd floor outdoor patio that it's probably like 40 feet long. It's all concrete, but for those, I'm an engineer, so concrete over time like sags a little bit.
Yeah.
So this guy's out there with like levels and tape measures and everything, trying to measure. It's called deflection of how much it sags. Trying to claim now this guy's an engineer, and like basically is like, you have to rip this entire section of the house down, and then I'll buy it, is what he tells us. And we're like, yeah, we're good.
See ya.
So then he's like, oh no, it gets better. He's like, well, I'm gonna get a home inspection. I'm gonna basically like, he's trying to like basically
strong army.
And so I'm like, I'm an engineer. I can tell you that even if I need to fix it, all I'm going to do is put 1 column in the center and basically cantilever back up, and I'd be fine. But we end up hiring a structural engineer. We have the plans. He goes, looks at it, and he just starts laughing. He's like, what's the problem out here? I'm like, okay, thank you. So so that guy ends up, we were close. He came up to like 1.88, but then he never would give the deposit. So like, fine, okay. So buyer number 2 comes. Buyer number 2 was one of the interested parties way back when the original seller was supposed to sell it. So this unique individual, man, this guy was such a pain in the ass, nitpicked every little thing about the property, then does his inspection, doesn't like that there's not enough stuff on the inspection, takes his, so in these crawl spaces, because most of the house was raised, and then there were some crawl spaces that weren't finished underneath. I guess the prior owners used to raise chickens. We didn't know this.
Oh.
So they used to keep chickens in these crawl spaces. So he went there and he took photos of the crawl spaces because there was like an egg or something on the ground. And he sends them to his home inspector, says, I want you to add this to the report that could be contaminated materials on this property.
Oh my.
So,
So you got people just trying to find shit.
yeah, so our agent, so Nicole, who I don't know if you met her when she was here, she was on the panel. She's like awesome, takes no BS, and I'll share some stories like to share with that, but she races motorcycles, like the kind where you wrap around a corner like 140 miles an hour this far off the ground.
Yeah.
That's what she does, so she's like, yeah, you're not gonna scare me. So she calls the agent of this guy and basically is like threatening to file like a complaint against her license and the inspector, because an inspector can't like modify or do shit like that to report. So basically, like, we didn't, and I'm like, yeah, I didn't know there were chickens living in the property, like, never been to the property, so we finally come to a resolution on get everything finally resolved. Then, like, the day before closing, the guy tries to pull, like, some other stunt, like, claiming, like, the HVAC isn't working, and this isn't working, and that, like, the floors aren't clean enough for his, for his liking, and it's not broom swept, and, like, just making shit up and stuff. And one of the things was, it had an electronic like gate to the front of it and stuff. So my agent actually, because she fixes her bikes and stuff, goes out there and basically opens the electrical and basically like checks everything's like, oh, it's just one of the spare batteries, runs to the store, basically rewires, puts a battery in and gets a gate operating. How many real estate agents do you know would do something like that for you?
No, that's a good agent.
That place, so they closed, it sold.
So they did close. So what ended up happening is, so it was listed, they made a full price offer at like 1,995. Oh, and here's the other thing that my agent, the appraisal came in at like 191. And so then of course the buyer's like, I want to adjust it down to the appraisal. My agent's like, that's complete bullshit. It's not 191. Starts firing off comps to the appraiser to contest it and stuff. We end up getting the appraisal adjusted back to, I think it was like 195 or 196. She got me like an extra $30,000 or $40,000.
Oh wow!
Just on top of that, besides like wiring the gate and everything else. So then, we bring it up. So then I think she was my agent was like new. I can get a little excited, sometimes, and I think was dealing with the borrower who was still trying to keep that 191 number, which I knew wasn't going to fly. So I think behind the scenes, she must have worked something out to get him to pull the trigger at the number they did. But yeah, we ended up finally closing at that like 195, 196.
What'd you guys buy it for?
Bought the loan, so for I think a little over $1 million. We're in it at the end of the day with taxes, carrying costs. I want to say for like 1.3. So,
killed it. Did
yeah,
great.
so after commissions, everything, we could have sold it as is and basically made zero money, or we put, again, 150. We ended up spending, I think, closer to 200 on it, made $500,000.
Generally how that goes.
How long did it take for the rehab?
Oh, we were about 3 months.
That's good.
So it was quick. Yeah.
War stories.
Yeah. I come from that background. Like I tell people, like we built our house and we started in July and I moved in before Christmas because, between my wife and I just, Brett knows what it's like being married to a Russian. They want shit done and they want it done quickly. So any type of renovation, we're like, hey, look, here's the schedule. That's one of the biggest things that if I'm hiring a contractor to do a project, it's not only what's the number, what's your time frame, what's your schedule? And I'm going to hold you to it because I've got one right now. I call it the Green Goblin. Mm-hmm. So, do we have time for another story?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
So, Green Goblin.
The Green Goblin. Yes. So, I bought a pool of 25 loans from a fix and flip lender. And this fix and flip lender, 10 of the loans was given to a 22-year-old borrower at 100+% financing.
What?
Okay, so how do you think those worked out for them?
Not well.
So
They probably end up selling them.
So yeah, they sold the loans. For 6 of the 10 actually had tenants who were on like leases and paying. So we foreclosed and file the evictions. They come back, we have a lease, and I'm like, can you show proof of payment? They're like, yeah. I'm like, great. Property manager meet tenant, tenant meet property manager, get everything squared away. But so one of these, I call it the Green Goblin. It was a property in Abilene, Texas, that has been on the news. Like this, Abilene, which I guess is a city. I'm not No,
We
no
did
lot.
one in Abilene.
Okay, it's an 11,000 square foot house.
Not that big. Ours wasn't that big.
Okay.
No, that's it.
The guy who was building it, so I guess it's in this gated community that is, all exclusive homes. One of the owners in the community was originally going to build it. They moved away, so they sold it as like when the foundation was in to this kid who's like, okay, I'm going to go build it. This company gave the guy a $1.8 million construction loan to go build the property. So I call it the Green Goblin because, the exterior sheathing is like green that they use.
Yeah.
So you got this 11,000 square foot monstrosity with all the green sheathing across the outside. Inside was drywall, 90% done with the drywall, started taping it and so forth. But the house was probably 50 to 60% done, we'll say. But he was in it for about 1.8 million, realized he probably still needed to spend another $1 million and just walked away. And how many non-performing note buyers want to go finish an 11,000 square foot house?
No.
Probably just one.
Yeah.
The dumb guy sitting in the corner over here. But when you buy the loan at like 25 cents on the dollar,
Okay.
so it's it starts to
Piques your interest.
So we bought it. We had to work with the city on the demolition notice because the city had a demolition notice on it because house had been sitting for 8 months in a, if you've got this monstrosity just sitting there at the entry to a gated community of all multi-million-dollar homes, HOAs don't like that.
No.
So, we got, basically worked with them, said, hey, look, here's a schedule, here's what I'm going to do, here's when we want to finish. We had to go back to the HOA because the exterior picture that was approved by the HOA compared to what this idiot did on the facade. I mean, if you could take a McMansion and make it the ugliest thing you could ever imagine, that's what this guy did. Mm-hmm. So I hired a designer who basically provided all brand new elevations of the property, what it was going to look like, interior designs, all the mood boards and everything.
So what did you have to do? Like, did you have blueprints on, or
we had the original blueprints. Yep.
So you knew where stuff was supposed to be.
Yep. So we knew where stuff was supposed to be. I hired a construction guy to be on site every day down there. And I used to manage construction projects, so I can look at the blueprints, and I just started spitting out scope of work for, let's start with the stucco on the facade, then I went to the drywall, the tape, the finish, the tile, the bathrooms, the cabinets, the casework, the pool. I just started writing it, handed it to a guy in there, and I'm like, hey, look, start getting the contractors in there, getting the bids. We scoped them out, got all the bids and got everything done, got the contracts. We had to finish, we had to replace the HVAC units because those were shit. Water heaters were shit. We had to get rid of those. But outside of that, there wasn't a lot of.
Was it another $1 million?
Pretty much we had this, we're pretty much with like the pool, the landscaping and everything else, we're going to be close to, spending about $1 million on the place.
So
but
1.4?
Yeah, so 1.4, 1.5, and the house across the street sold pre-COVID, which was the largest sale ever in Abilene, I think for like 199, but 5 years ago. So we're going to push to something. We just don't know.
2 and change for sure.
Yeah, so we haven't figured that out yet, but and it's really interesting too because even the interior designers, Texas is a very traditional state. So have them go through. I have one of them that does this very country-looking feel, and with grandma's wallpaper and stuff on the wall, and I'm like. $2 million,
I need more of Austin than I do.
Well, no, what's funny is, so then I found this woman, she just moved back to Abilene, she was up in Denver, and she does like high-end Airbnb designs.
That's a good.
Yeah, and she was showing me her Airbnbs, and showing me these, and all of a sudden I'm comparing them, and price-wise, they're pretty much very close between the two, but she was showing me designs, and she's like, what do you want? And I basically told her, I'm like, you got this, and she knew who this other person was, and she was telling me, with them, you get this, with me, you get that. And she's like, well, what do you want? And I basically said, I want what you have because nobody else has that, and anybody can go build, a 3 or 4,000 square foot home, but if someone's going to step in and want a 11,000 square foot home, they're going to want it to be probably a little bit more like with a pop. So, you know, like the finishes on the walls, the tile in the bathroom. You know, I showed you that Miami bathtub. So we bought one that was like a faux one that looked like that, but it looks like this big block of stone that we put. It was like $4,000 for a bathtub, which still ridiculous amount of money, but not 100,000.
But still, but if you're doing an 11,000 square foot house,
it's those little things
you have to. You have to know.
Those unique things.
You got to know know your audience. We were.
So right now we're in the throes of, you know, they're rocking and rolling on the outside. The thing that took the longest was just working with the city just to get the permit and the HOA just to approve
just
the
to
plans.
get them to back off for a little bit.
Yeah, just get back. But they love us because, first thing I went out there and did was, I went and got the lawn mowed. And
did you go there to the property?
I haven't gone, no. But basically I had my guy. I'm like, first thing to do, get a dumpster, get all the trash cleaned up on the property, and get the lawn mowed. And I'm like, make it look respectable, because if I lived across the street,
I'd be pissed.
So like, hey, look, let's be a friendly neighbor. And we handed out notices to every neighbor who we are. Here's our contact information. If you want us at the HOA board meeting, we're happy to attend. Like, I used to be on a planning board, so I know everybody's hot buttons. And basically, Harry, the HO board, now comes over and hangs out with our guy and talk shop all day long. And now it's like, little kids in the neighborhood, all the adults are like, come watch all the cool construction because there's so much going on. And it's like, there's not much going on in Abilene, so it's like, here we go. We had the news station come out and interview our interior designer on the property about how we're turning it back into, from the ugly duckling of the neighborhood into, the prize of the city.
That's great. And you want to talk about when it comes time to sell it.
So,
you've got like all this pre-marketing going on. People know about it, and wait till that one hits the market.
Yeah, and I hired, so there's a guy that lived in the next neighborhood over, engaged him to go in and take like interior construction photos and, zoom, aerial photos like around the property, so it showed the progress and stuff.
Awesome,
so,
man.
Yeah, just build a little portfolio of kind of, sharing the story of it.
That's good stuff, man. Well, I've had a lot of your time. You know what I think is cool is that you're doing all this stuff, you're telling us about all these war stories. You've got a fund people can actually go and invest in and just be part of it. And not, do they get to hear these war stories? Do you have like a investors meeting where you tell them that you won't believe the shit that just happened? Or
So every Saturday we send out case study. We do a case study every Saturday to our investors on like deals that we've closed, some of these other things.
Good.
Do we go into all the nitty-gritty details? No, like, the one where, I had the lender who stole the money from, that's a whole nother one we could go down, where the original lender originated, sold it, then I bought it, and then he basically sent the title company a payoff, and the title company didn't check I own the loan, so sent him the money, not me the money, but, shit like that, we have going on a daily basis as well.
Hair on those deals.
Oh yeah, there's always hair on them, but I mean, we do share the stories with our investors and kind of, the wins, the losses, kind of what we go on, kind of any pivots we make or things we see in the industry. Because I got 5 investors here at the conference that come up and, everything that, the number one reason they're like, hey, I greatly appreciate the fact that, we know where you stand with you in regards to, you're not trying to sell us on something. You basically answer people's questions and tell it like it is.
Yeah.
So. Well, and that you're a sharp guy and that you know how to handle problems.
Yeah.
It's like somebody investing into something.
Yeah.
Like,
he's got it, but
he's just doesn't know.
That's,
you know how to talk numbers, but then again, you know how to get into the nitty gritty and get things done. So you don't want to get too much into the nitty gritty.
Oh,
they know
yeah.
If some crap falls on your plate, you're gonna be able to clean it out.
Oh yeah, and I can clean it out without having to, again, I get excited on certain things, but for me, it's it's a challenge. Like when something happens, I'm the engineer. It's like, I love, I'm a big football fan, so it's like, okay, how do I stop the blitz? If they are, if you've got somebody pressuring you a certain way, it's like, how do you make these game time adjustments? And that's how I deal with the borrowers. Is every day it's a game time adjustment and it's a game that you just continue to work on.
And I will say this: you always know where you stand with you, which I appreciate. It's you just like not afraid to call it spade a spade. So, anyways, well, that's it for this edition of the Paperstac podcast. We will have Chris back on for more fireside chats with Chris Seveney to hear war stories. Appreciate you coming out there, man.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us out
Thank
here.
you.
We will, TJ, Rick, Chris, signing off. We will catch you guys on the next episode. Thanks.
Thank you.